Hello everyone, welcome back for another edition of Virtual Yin Yoga. I'm your instructor Mike and I'm happy to have you with me this evening. What I wanted to do, a very special practice, one that I really enjoy teaching, is chair yoga. And this particular practice is designed with a few things in mind. Obviously, for those who struggle getting down to the floor, doing a yoga practice on the floor can be really difficult for a lot of people. So this is partly meant for you. It is also meant for those, even if you have significant mobility and you're very flexible and you're a really strong person, if you're stuck and confined in a certain area for a long period of time, for example, a car ride, like you're going on a car ride vacation, you're on a plane, this practice is also designed for you. What we're going to do is the meridian exercises. We're going to try to imagine that we're confined, right, to this tiny little chair, this tiny little area here, and do an entire practice based off of that. Again, this is one of my favorites to do, so why I'm really excited to teach it. A few things you're going to need before you get started is a chair, obviously. I don't expect us to use too many props with this. Most of this, if not all of it, is just going to be about the mobility of the joints themselves. So you probably won't need too much. There may be some times where you feel like you need to cross your leg over, but really nothing too much. But when you're ready, let's go ahead and get this started. We'll begin in a comfortable seated position. And that could just be sitting down in a chair or even sitting on the floor. It's really up to you if you prefer to do your yoga practice on the floor. That is fine. I know a lot of people have that preference. But you'll close your eyes. Pay attention to your breath. I want you to breathe low in your belly, low in your diaphragm. And if you'd like to double check if you're doing this correctly, place a hand on your stomach below your belly button. You're going to feel the stomach expand when you take an inhale. It contracts when you take an exhale. And this is belly breathing. It's a breathing technique I recommend for our practice because it's a slower paced practice, right? We want to slow things down. Breathing low in your diaphragm helps with that. Slows the heart down, slows the nervous system down, and it also slows your mind down. And again, what we're doing today is chair yoga. This is a practice for those who struggle to get down to the floor or for those who are confined to sitting for long periods of time in tight spaces. This is all about the mobility of the joints, toes all the way up to the neck. And during this practice, if you find yourself struggling, you find yourself not able to do certain things, this is fine, right? Obviously, we're going to do our best to work around the tight space that we're in, and we're just going to take it as it goes. But if you ever need to modify or change anything up, feel free to either experiment or listen up to the suggestions that I throw out. A lot of times I'll give options and modifications for you to work with, so you can pick and choose what you want to do. When you're ready, you can open your eyes. And we're going to start this off with our toes. In fact, you don't really have to move them too much. Maybe I'll kind of lift them up. But what I want you to do with both is spread out your toes as far as you can and then clench. And just kind of like go back and forth with this. Spreading, clenching. Never to the point of strain, but just enough to start to wake your toes. A few of these I'll probably show you from profile views as well, instead of just the straight on view. Just so you can see what exactly they look like. But we're going to work our ankles, and I'll actually show you from the side here too. So you're going to take your toes and point them forward, and then bring them back towards you, right? It's kind of like back and forth with this. Once again, never to the point of strain, just enough to start to wake up your toes, your ankles a little bit. And then when you're ready, go ahead and bring your foot in. Doesn't matter which side you start. If you can cross your leg and grab your foot, go for it. If not, just lean forward and just grab the toes themselves. But you're going to take the big toe. I want you to bend it forward and back a few times, forward and back. Rotate it into a circle, a few times one way, a few the other. A little pinch and pull on the nail and then move on. You do the same thing with this other toe. Now this is a practice where, well, at least this particular part, I should say, if you don't feel comfortable with taking your shoes off in public, if you happen to be doing this in a car ride or on a plane or something like that, you can always just do what we did before. Spread out your toes and clench, spread them and clench. This is a little bit of just extra for you. Obviously though, if you do feel comfortable with having your shoes off, I mean, you can do them in your socks as well. I would recommend doing it though. And when you're done with your last toe, no rush to do this, but you're actually going to massage the sole of the foot, the top of the foot, the heel, the Achilles tendon. Once again, you don't have to cross your leg over like this, but if you can, go for it. In fact, a lot of people, depending on how tight you are, if you're someone who is really limited in mobility, this actually might be a challenge for you. And in fact, for a lot of people, it ends up getting them a stretch for their IT band, across this cross leg to the outside of the leg. Just so you know, if you're feeling that stretch, that's extra for you. But if you're someone who has pretty normal mobility, you probably won't feel that at all. We're going to work our ankle next. We put it forward and back. We're going to take the circles here. So you can either grab the foot and do it, right? Nice circles, or you can just do it itself. Either way, it's fine. It's whatever is more comfortable for you. A few times one way, a few the other though, right? It's the golden rule of yoga. And when you got the balance between those two directions, place the leg down. We're going to work the knee. And again, I'm going to show you from the profile view. Actually, maybe I'll look this way. So what you're going to do with your leg is extend, point the toe, bring it back in, extend, point the heel, and just kind of going back and forth, right? Toe and heel. This is the mobility of your knee. It doesn't really do a lot. There you go. And then when you're ready, place that leg down, and we're going to massage the bigger muscles of the same leg, right? Getting your quads, your inner thighs, your IT bands, your hamstrings, your glutes if you can get them, your hip flexors, which is really big muscles right here toward the top of the pelvis. Just a nice little massage here. And a few things that you could use, if you happen to have a tennis ball nearby, feel free to grab that. You can use a tennis ball and just kind of roll it out on your quads, IT bands, inner thighs, whatever. You could always use it on your foot too. If we're doing the massaging the sole of the foot, you can just rub your foot on that ball, right? Circles, back and forth kind of thing. Be creative, right? Be creative. This one you might be a little tight on space here, but if you can do it, try it out. Hug your knee up to the chest. Nice little squeeze here. You feel the outside of the leg stretch once again your IT band. So again, if you're in a plane and you really can't do this, then that's fine. But if you happen to have the space for it, go for it. And then we're also going to do external rotation here. You're going to put the foot down on the quad and just really gently push down on your knee. Inner thigh gets the stretch here. So again, if you're kind of really tight on space, I know, being in an airplane, you really don't have this much room. You could always skip this particular part, but if you're at your house, you're doing this on your own, you're in the car ride, you got the room, go for it. A little bit of back and forth action here, just move it around. And we have one more thing that we're going to do with this leg. We're going to take the hip and rotate it into a circle. I'm going to show you two different ways to do it. One of them is literally just taking your knee here and going into a circle, right? This whole big circle. You could also cradle your leg and approach this the same way. Either way is fine. You probably would use this one if you were tight on space. But make sure you go the other way too, right? You gotta go both ways. If you're not tight on space, you cradle that leg, you go out a little bit wider on your rotation. And again, all of these are really important to do. When you're stuck and you can't move for a long period of time, especially like in high altitudes, for some reason blood clots can tend to develop. There's a lot of people who really struggle with that. So if that's you, keep the blood going, keep the body moving a little bit, even if it's something simple like this. Then you place that leg down and just take a moment here. Feel the difference between the two. We've only worked the one leg. I'm sure it feels different than the other. Just take the note. And when you are ready, other side. Doesn't matter what side it is as long as it is the other one for you. And you can lean forward and grab your foot or cross your leg over and start working the toes. The big toe is the first one. Forward and back a few times. Rotation a few times. Pinch and pull, move on. Same deal. Really important to work our toes. I mean, they're so often neglected, and most people think that there's not much significance to them, but I mean, think of walking. Anytime you walk, you're using your toes for stability, especially your big toe, but other toes are there too. So making sure that they're all limber, loose, you can prevent arthritis, prevent tension and tightness, you can prevent things like plantar fasciitis, right? So even though, I know this for a lot of people, they don't particularly enjoy doing this sequence. I know it's not as dynamic as doing like a full-blown yin practice or like any kind of flow style of practice, but this is a practice, right? This is a practice as well, just for getting the energy going, just for making sure that the body is moving. You're going to massage the sole of the foot. Next, top of the foot, heel, Achilles tendon, if you haven't already done so. You may have. If you happen to have the tennis ball now, here's where you could use it again. You just put that ball on the floor and you just roll your foot on it. You know, forward, back, side to side, circles, both ways. Right? It's actually a technique using like tennis balls or foam rollers called the melt method. It stands for myofascial energetic lengthening technique. It's just a fancy way of saying you're lengthening your connective tissues, which really you're not doing so much. I'm pretty sure they're going to have to reword that particular description. You're most likely breaking up layers of connective tissue that are stuck together. Like the myofascial connective tissues, they get stuck together when they dry up. And when you move them, you start producing hyaluronic acid, which is essentially lubrication for your fascia and your connective tissues. When it's lubricated, those layers can glide on each other. So it's not really lengthening so much. It's more along the lines of having that tissue that's already there and having the mobility to move it again. Ankle coming up next. You can rotate it if you'd like to with your hand, or you can just do it by itself. Either way is fine. I usually prefer to use my hand. I just like to make sure that I'm going to the full range and not really using a lot of effort muscular-wise other than my arm. When you're ready, place that leg down. I think we actually skipped this one, so we're going to do both here. You're going to massage your calf and your shin. Hey, cross your leg and do this, or just lean forward. Either way is fine. Definitely forgot to do this. I can tell, actually. It's okay. So if you didn't do the other side, do it here. Happens. Okay, it happens. But the most important thing is making sure that you catch it. I mean, if you miss it, that's one thing. But if you're catching it late, that's not. It's not too bad. You're not like gonna explode by catching it late or by not doing it. You might though. I don't know. Maybe. So what we're gonna do next, we're gonna work our knee. And again, I'm gonna flip over here. So with the knee, you're going to extend, point the toe, bring it back in, extend, point the heel, just going back and forth with this, toe and heel, right? So you're taking your knee to full range of motion here. And when you work the knee enough, you place that leg down, and you're going to massage the bigger muscles of your legs. That means quad, upper thigh, inner thighs, IT bands, the outside of the leg, hamstrings, the back of the legs, hip flexors, big muscles towards the top of the pelvis. Your glutes are your butt muscles, just to be crude about it, but that's what they are. Everybody likes to have nice glutes, just strong but also flexible. You'd actually be amazed at all the tension that can come from your butt muscles, your glutes. And in fact, sometimes they're so tight, it also ties in with the hamstring, but when they're so tight that they start pulling your pelvis backward in a posterior tilt, that's when you really start having issues with L5, S1. If you've ever had back pain, you most likely have had it in that particular joint, especially if something here in your hips is too tight, right? So it can go forward, it can go back, go to sides, combinations of these things. So again, all of these things are for maintenance to prevent that and to even help treat it if it is happening. We're gonna stretch the IT band a little bit. Again, this one is optional. If you are definitely confined in the space, you probably won't be able to do it, but if you can, feel free. Hug that knee up to your chest. Nice little squeeze here. Feel the outside of this stretching. You know, it's so important to do exercises, especially at a time like this. You know, me personally, I love going to the gym, and I haven't been able to really go to the gym since March of this year. And you know, because of that, I've noticed not necessarily weakness, but the build that I had for a while is gone. And you know, I've been making sure to continue practicing yoga as much as I can. And I do exercises in the comfort of my own home. I know a lot of people, again, like myself, we're not comfortable with going out to a gym, especially in a place where you're constantly sweating and you have to trust that other people are disinfecting their equipment afterwards, because you know, some people do, some people don't. So if you don't feel comfortable going out, mainly is what I'm trying to point at, you got to do something at home. Right? You have to have some kind of activity that you can do in the comfort of your own home, or even just outside of your home, like walking in your neighborhood or something like that. You know, here in Lawrenceburg, you know, we have the beauty of the Riverwalk. You know, it's people would kill to have that in other areas. You know, I personally live over in Cincinnati on the west side, and we don't really have anything quite like that. I basically walk around in neighborhoods with my dog all the time, which is fine, but you know, sometimes it's nice to be out in the scenery. Place that leg down when you're ready. We've gone back and forth with this. The last thing we're going to do is take the hip to full range of motion. Two ways to do it. One is just to do it straight on, right? The other is to cradle the leg. You can go out a little wider. Obviously, again, if you were tight on space, you wouldn't be able to do this one. But if you're not, then do it. Just do this now. A few times one way, a few the other. And then when you're ready, you place that leg down and just take a moment here. Feel all that work we've done. We've only done the legs, and we've done this probably for about 15 minutes. We're going to keep the energy moving up. You know, we've done the lower body. It's time to move up to the upper body. And this one will be a little bit faster than the other. Normally with our feet, we'll take our time, a little bit more so down there. This one probably take about 5-10 minutes to run through, but you know, we'll see how it goes. You don't necessarily have to limit yourself on the time here. Some people are very systematic about this practice. And what I mean by that is they'll do, like with our toes, they'll bend it forward and back like 15 times each way, circle 15 times each way. You could easily draw this practice out into an hour, but again, with this just being a simple lesson, I wanted to make sure that we confine it into a certain amount of time. So with our upper body, let's work our back a little bit. Go ahead and twist from side to side, right? It's kind of back and forth here. Loosening up the spine, especially the lumbar. And feel free to use your intuition. Maybe you'll lean forward into this. Like you take your right hand, left foot, left hand, right foot. Maybe you lean back a little bit. Wherever you need, just loosen yourself up. And then we're going to work into our hands. I want you to spread out your hands as far as you can, and then clench like a fist. Back and forth with it too. And then you could do thumb on the inside, take it out, thumb on the outside, back and forth, right with the thumb on the inside, thumb on the outside. Just make sure that we're waking up our thumbs as well. This is definitely an area a lot of people will develop some arthritis in. We want to make sure that we got those thumbs nice and mobile, solely because if they're not, it's going to be really difficult for you to grasp things. And then you shake it off when you're ready. We're going to do what we did to our toes with our fingers. So we're going to take our finger, doesn't matter which side you start with, take the thumb, bend it back and forth a few times, rotation, rotation, pinch and pull, move on, same deal this side. Make sure your hands are limp when you're doing this. If you're flexing your fingers too much, you're not going to be able to work into your joints as effectively. Really important to make sure that things are soft when it comes to the muscles when you're stretching. Because if you're flexing them while you're trying to strengthen, think about this. You're flexing, it's contracting, but you're trying to stretch it, so it's lengthening. This is the exact recipe for tearing things. So this is why whenever I teach a yin practice or anything like this, I say muscles soften, right? Make sure that they are soft. When you're done with the last finger, and you know, no rush to go to the other side, but feel free to do it when you are. You bend the thumb backward and forward a few times, circle, circle. And the reason why we're doing both hands at the same time, solely to save a little bit of time. You could do this as well if you're doing your feet I personally prefer to do the legs and the feet one at a time because I can feel it a little bit more so down there as opposed to the upper body. You know, we use our fingers way more than we do our toes. We're dexterous, so not really like a bad thing to do it both at the same time. When you're done, shake it off a little bit. We're going to work our palms. Right? Work our palms like we did the soles of the foot. So palm, back of the hand, all throughout the sides, base of the thumb, base of the knuckles and the fingers. Really try to work in there. And then the other side, when you're ready, right? Massaging that palm, base of the thumb, back of the hand, base of the knuckles. Really working into it. You shake it off when you're ready. And we're going to stretch our wrists. We're going to do a few things. Before we do the stretch, we're going to loosen them up by taking the wrist to full range of motion. It's nice pretty circles here. A few times one way, a few the other. Right, golden rule of yoga. And just so you know, you don't have to do it on the same rhythm. I would encourage you if you can. But if you're someone who likes to do the opposites, that's fine too. Or if you're just kind of like really struggling to do this at all, it's how your brain works. Don't beat yourself up about it. But when you're ready, shake that off. We're going to stretch the wrist, belly of the forearm. You're going to take one hand, doesn't matter which side you start with. Take that hand and pull it down. You're going to hold this hand down, or if you're in your chair, you can place the palm down in between your legs on the chair itself. It's the inside of the wrist, though, that I want you to stretch. And we're doing this one at a time solely because I know some people don't have the mobility to put their hand down like this. So if you just pull it down on your hand, that's going to be totally fine because it's still going to stretch the same area. That's all that matters. I mean, it's a functional perspective. Am I stretching this area? When you are ready, though, let it go, shake it off a little bit. And then we'll do the other side. So you pull that hand down, hold it, place that palm down in between your legs on the chair. Nice broad stretches here. Two sides are different though, aren't they? This side is definitely tighter for me. I mean, it's like night and day difference. Now when you're ready, real slow, let it out. Move it around a little bit. I'm just going to shake it off. We're going to work the back of the wrist. We're going to do this one both at the same time. There's going to be a couple different ways to do it. One is to just flip your hands over, having the back of the hands down on your legs. It's still right here, get the stretch. You could also do the same thing in between your legs here on the chair. Just whatever provides you the most stability and gives you the best stretch, that is the one that I want you to do. And you just never know until you get there. And sometimes you have to really experiment to find out which one is going to work best for you. Because every day is different. Some days, for me, it's better to have my hands on my legs like this, or it's better to have my hands in front of me in the chair or on the floor. And when you are ready, get real slow, let it out, move it around, shake it off. We're going to work the elbows. Not much you can do. They open, they close. Right? Hinge joint. It's kind of like a door. Right? It only opens and closes. Now, you're probably not going to have the space for this if you are in a car or if you're on the plane, but if you got the room for it, you try it out. But arms out to the sides. Right? This is it. Hands to shoulder blades, you're going to rotate. Remember, a few times one way and through the other. It's the golden rule of yoga. Got to do both ways in both directions. But when you're feeling that balance, shake it off a little bit. We're going to work our neck next. Let's do a gentle stretch for it. Lift your ear up to the ceiling. Right? Feel some lengthening inside the neck when you're lifting it up. And you're going to hold it for a little bit. When you're ready, release. And then the other side, lifting the ear, elevating inside the neck. And when you're ready, move around. Maybe just do a few more things with the neck. Turn your head to the left, to the point where you meet resistance. When you're ready, release, and then go to the other side, turn it to the right. Two sides are different though, aren't they? Even here. When you're ready, release. Move around. And just for good measure, you're going to take the neck to full range. Nice circles. A few times one way, and a few the other. Do your best to balance. You got your balance, you rest your neck at the center. And there you have it. You just took every single joint to its full range of motion. And we didn't really even have to do a full yin practice where we just stretched everything. This particular sequence was just taking every joint, toes included, all the way to the neck, to its fullest range of motion. Reason being, because we want to keep these joints at their full range of motion. If we stop moving, if we let contracture and tightness take over our bodies, we can lose this kind of mobility. Obviously, we don't want to do that, right? So the whole point of doing this is to make sure that we have that mobility. And with that in mind, it makes other practices easier for you. So, and it's not just yoga. I'm a musician. Before I play, doesn't matter what instrument I'm playing, but anything that's going to involve my hands, obviously, I will do the meridian exercises specifically for my wrists, right? I'll do my fingers, and then I'll work my wrists, and then I'll stretch them. I'll even work my elbows, my shoulders. Sometimes I'll even work my neck. But a lot of times it's just this, right? Just making sure that this is loose and ready to go for that other practice. And you can do it for anything. You know, if you're someone who sits at a computer a lot, this is going to be ideal for you. But definitely, again, if you're someone who is confined to a chair, you know, if you're struggling with mobility, or if you're someone who is just on a long car ride, on a long plane ride, this is the practice for you. But when you're ready, we're at the end of it. So let's go ahead and close our eyes. Pay attention to the breath. Breathe low in your belly, low in your diaphragm. Turn your senses, your awareness within. And for these last few minutes, just give your body a compare and contrast. You know, how different do you feel right now as opposed to when you first started? No formal ending to our practice. Keep your eyes closed as long as you like. That's officially all that I have for you. I want to thank you for watching and sharing your practice with me. It's been my pleasure. Namaste.